You're listening to The Bible Guys, a podcast where a couple of friends talk about the Bible in fun and practical ways.
Hey, good morning, everybody. If indeed you are listening in the morning.
That's right. The Bible Guys are back.
You may listen at night.
They might be.
Yeah, we are back.
Back.
Better than ever. New and improved.
So he's Chris and I'm Jeff, and we make up the Bible Guys team, and we've been doing this for a while.
Yeah,
we're coming up on, I think next week will be
2 years.
Our 400th Bible Guys episode is next week.
Yeah, and then if you include before it became the Bible Guys,
we're way over. We're closer to 600.
Yeah. It was It was called HC Daily. Yeah.
I don't know that I ever wanted to do 600 of anything with you.
Of anything with you.
But here we are. We're coming up on it. But It's almost 400 episodes of just the Bible Guys.
600 minutes together. You didn't want to do 600 minutes?
I don't know.
No,
I don't know that I had a plan for our relationship.
600 seconds? Whatever. 600 anything, he says.
Yeah.
Anything. Doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, but we're coming up. Next week will be our 400th episode. So
yeah, that's pretty cool.
Super cool. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Well, hey, this segment for today is actually something we haven't done in quite a while, which is a social media minute.
Oh, these are fun. I like these.
Yeah. So Desiree has grabbed just some comments from, people either writing in or... Well, actually, all writing in, but either through email or on posting on YouTube
or Facebook or Facebook
whatever. Yeah. So I guess I'll read the first one. It says, "You guys came through for one of my assignments. I needed a podcast for an assignment I'm doing, and you guys have one. You guys have one just for what I need. Blessings," says Jaden S.
Well, you're welcome, Jaden.
We're glad that we could be the Cliff Notes to your project.
That's right. That's fantastic.
That's awesome.
What kind of assignment would Jaden have been doing that needed?
Jaden has to be
a couple of yahoos like us.
Well, maybe it's a Bible college student.
Okay. What not to do when you're teaching the Bible?
That's right.
Yeah. So just to remind you, we're not pretending like we're professors here. We're just two guys who like to talk about the Bible in fun and practical ways. So, yeah, it's more devotional. Okay, well, good job, Jaden. Thank you. We're glad we can help you out. The second one is from Karen H. She says, "I just love how you guys describe heaven. It's amazing how you can do that and make the Bible understandable. I love you guys. Thank you." Oh, well, we love you too, Karen. That's amazing.
That's very nice.
So that's really incredible.
She said, "I love you guys."
I know. That's nice.
That's very, very nice. Yep. Okay, and then Johnny C. says this, "I want to thank you guys so much for doing this daily. You guys help me so much in ways that I wish I could put into words. All I have to say is thank you so much. I look forward to your podcast. I've never been a firm believer in Jesus/God, but I recently have had a spiritual experience that definitely changed my life."
Wow.
That's amazing.
Wow.
I love that.
Johnny, that's amazing.
Yeah, when somebody discovers God for the first time, and, comes to know especially the power of God that changes lives. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So, hey, Johnny, you've heard us say it before, but the Bible says that just in time, Jesus paid the price for us. And that everyone who calls on the name of the Lord, if you believe that Jesus paid the price and he rose again, you're willing to confess your sins and invite him to become the Lord of your life, the King of your life, everyone who calls on the name of the Lord can be saved, right? That's amazing. So we're really glad that you're on that journey. That's really incredible.
It's great.
So, and we're glad that we get to be a part of it.
Oh, for sure.
So what do we have here? We had Jaden and Karen and Johnny. Thank you guys. And anybody else, hey, send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. And we'd love to communicate in some way.
Yeah, and we love getting emails too. Our website is thebibleguys.com.
That's correct.
And you can go and do all sorts of things on that website. You can subscribe. You can research manuscripts, right?
Yeah. We have all the transcripts, not manuscripts, but the transcripts.
That's right.
Of every show. And So
it's pretty neat. And you could email us at info@thebibleguys.com.
That's correct.
Sweetness.
Well, good. So today we are in Matthew chapter 27, Mark 15, Luke 23, and John 18.
Yes,
and then we're going to go back to Luke 23 again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're going to cover some ground. The last couple ones we've done only had just a few verses, and now we're reading half the Bible on this one. So
right.
We're making up for lost time.
Buckle up.
So this is Jesus standing before Pilate. This is his first trial against Pilate. So Matthew chapter 27, verse 11 says, Now Jesus was standing before Pilate, the Roman governor. Are you king of the Jews? The governor asked him. Jesus replied, You have said it. But when the leading priests and the elders made their accusations against him, Jesus remained silent. Don't you hear all these charges they're bringing against you? Pilate demanded, but Jesus made no response to any of the charges, much to the governor's surprise. In Mark chapter 15, verse 2, Pilate asked Jesus, Are you the king of the Jews? Jesus replied, You have said it. Then the leading priests kept accusing him of many crimes, and Pilate asked him, Aren't you going to answer them? What about all these charges they bringing against you? But Jesus said nothing, much to Pilate's surprise. And in Luke chapter 23, verse 1, it says, Then the entire council took Jesus to Pilate, the Roman governor. They began to state their case. This man has been leading our people astray by telling them not to pay their taxes to the Roman government and by claiming he is the Messiah, a king. So Pilate asked him, Are you the king of the Jews? Jesus replied, You've said it. Pilate turned to the leading priests and to the crowd and said, I find nothing wrong with this man. Then they became inconsistent, but he is...
Insistent.
Oh, insistent, what'd I say?
Inconsistent.
Inconsistently insistent.
That's right.
Okay. But they became insistent, but he is causing riots by his teaching wherever he goes, all over Judea, from Galilee to Jerusalem. Oh, is he a Galilean? Pilate asked. When they said that he was, Pilate sent him to Herod Antipas because Galilee was under Herod's jurisdiction, and Herod happened to be in Jerusalem at the time. And then in John 18, verse 28, it says, Jesus' trial before Caiaphas ended in the early hours of the morning, and then he was taken to the headquarters of the Roman governor. His accusers didn't go inside because it would defile them, and they wouldn't be allowed to celebrate the Passover. So Pilate the governor went out to them and asked, What is your charge against this man? We wouldn't have handed him over to you if he weren't a criminal, they retorted. Then take him away and judge him by your own law, Pilate told him. Only the Romans are permitted to execute someone, the Jewish leaders replied. This fulfilled Jesus' prediction about the way he would die. Then Pilate went back into his headquarters and called for Jesus to be brought to him. Are you the king of the Jews? He asked him. Jesus replied, Is this your own question, or did others tell you about me? Am I a Jew? Pilate retorted. Your own people and their leading priests brought you to me for trial. Why? What have you done? Jesus answered, My kingdom is not an earthly kingdom. If it were, my followers would fight to keep me from being handed over to the Jewish leaders, but my kingdom is not of this world. Pilate said, So you are a king? And Jesus responded, You say I'm a king. Actually, I was born and came into the world to testify to the truth. All who love the truth recognize what I say is true. And then in Luke chapter 23, verse 8, it says, Herod was delighted at the opportunity to see Jesus because he'd heard about him and had been hoping for a long time to see him perform a miracle. He asked Jesus question after question, but Jesus refused to answer. Meanwhile, the leading priests and the teachers of religious law stood there shouting their accusations. And then Herod and his soldiers began mocking and ridiculing Jesus. And finally, they put a royal robe on him and sent him back to Pilate. Herod and Pilate, who had been enemies before, became friends that day.
So really, there's only one passage that talks about him going to Herod and then coming back. And it's only Luke chapter 23.
That's correct.
So there's only verses 8 through 12. That's it. So Luke's the only one that covers the Herod account, part of the trial. And even though the other ones say, like John said, hey, we're going to send him to Herod.
Right.
But
Luke's the only one
Luke's the only one that talks about Herod.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
And Herod's just intrigued because he heard Jesus did really cool things.
Right.
Hey, come over. This would be like inviting Chris Angel to your big party and saying, "Hey, do some card tricks, dude.
Right.
Can you levitate?"
Yeah.
Right. That's what's happening. He's a celebrity that wants another celebrity to come in and entertain.
Yeah. Herod didn't even care the fact. It didn't even seem like he cared that he was on trial for his life.
No.
He's just like, ooh,
sweet.
I heard about this guy. I'm glad you came all the way over here.
Right. Which is kind of Herod was known for.
Perform, monkey boy.
Yeah. Exactly. Herod was known for debauchery and partying and very hedonistic lifestyle, which is strange. He was Jewish that had bought his position, right? His father before him, his grandfather before him, and they had sold out the Jewish people to be kings. And so at this point now he's outside of mainstream Judaism, certainly, and he's just living this wild, crazy, self-centered life. And so for him, it makes total sense that he would see this more as a party favor than anything else. And then they dress him up like a king in purple robes and send him back to Pilate. And apparently Pilate thought that was funny. They became friends that day.
Yeah.
Right? They were enemies because you have Herod, who is the kind of the Roman face for the Jews. Like, hey, let's have one of them so he calm them down. And Pilate being the Roman face of the Romans. And so there was some tension between these two leaders. But their palaces were very, very close. If you ever look at a map of ancient Israel or ancient Jerusalem at the time, their palaces were close. So it's not like it had to get in a chariot and go, back up to Galilee. It happened that Herod had palaces all over Israel.
Right. Which is why it said he happened to be in Jerusalem that time.
Right.
It meant he wasn't just like down the street, like at the corner market. Mm-hmm. He just was at his palace in Jerusalem.
Yeah. Well, it's Passover. This is the biggest thing happening in the whole nation right now. He wants to be seen. It's like going to the Super Bowl. All the people who don't like football, but they're already famous, and then they go buy a suite. And they spend $1 million on a suite they don't even care about because they don't care about the game. They just want to be seen.
Yeah,
right?
In some cases.
Yeah, a lot of times, and that's kind of I think Herod's thing. It's not that Herod was celebrating Passover. It was just that this is the happening scene this week. I want to be there, and he had a palace in Jerusalem, so he went. And so they pass him off like this. But I think that the amazing thing is the conversation that's recorded in Luke 23 that's not recorded in the rest with regard to, it just says in the others, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Right? Matthew and Mark.
Right.
But in Luke, it kind of begins to unpack the conversation. Oh, no, not Luke. John, right? John begins to say, only the Romans are permitted to execute someone, is what the Jewish leaders say. And then he goes back and he's having this conversation with Jesus. "Are you the king of the Jews?" And he goes, "Is this your question? Did others tell you about me?" Right. He gets mad. "What do you think? I'm a Jew? Like I care what the Pharisees and the priests are saying?" Right.
Yeah, and then John also records more about the conversation about truth.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's how it ends.
Yeah. And is Pilate the second time? Is that when he says, "What is truth?"
Yes.
Right. So they have another conversation later on, sort of like an extended conversation to this beginning one right here. Because obviously Jesus is claiming about truth here, and that's the only thing he says in the first meeting. I think that it's very, very typical for people to pass the buck. So, a little sermon within a sermon here is what does Pilate do? He tries to shake off his responsibility, and he tries to say, "Oh, he's Galilean? Yes." I could argue and say, this isn't my problem, it's Herod's problem.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't want to deal with this Galilean.
Yeah, and sometimes I think that as pastors, I've seen you do this where you actually take responsibility for other pastors' wrongdoings. So somebody treats somebody poorly, and you're like, "Hey, I'm not a pastor of your previous church, but I am a pastor.
I'm sorry." Yeah.
So I just apologize on behalf of pastors everywhere and on behalf of the church.
Yeah.
Or you'll try to step up and try to make it right just because you don't want to see somebody fall or things like this. It's the opposite of what a lot of people do. A lot of people just say, "Hey, that I'm gonna shrek off the responsibility. This is not my problem." It feels segregated in people's minds sometimes, but it's not. We're the big church. We're the big C church for every church that believes that the way to heaven is through Jesus Christ. Right? We own people's experiences with church and with God and with religious leaders, and we should try to take responsibility across the board.
Yeah,
for each other.
You can't hardly blame him that he doesn't want to touch this. He doesn't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. He feels like he's getting played a little bit. He sees there's really nothing to this. Come on, really? Oh, he told people don't pay their taxes. He doesn't even address that part. That's a big deal. It's the only reason why Rome kept conquering the rest of the world was to collect taxes, which may mean he already knew that Jesus had said, "Give to Caesar that which is Caesar's."
Maybe, yeah.
Right? Maybe he knew that. It happened in Jerusalem when that statement came up. It happens in Jerusalem. So maybe he knew that was a lie.
Or maybe it was so common that he's like, "Yeah, welcome to every Jew who says that."
yeah, exactly.
Right? Which is why we have henchmen everywhere.
Right.
Because nobody wants to pay their taxes.
But he doesn't even address that.
Right.
And then he just wants to know, are you really a king? Like, are you going to cause me trouble?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Are you a king of the Jews? Oh, let me send you to Herod. You're Galilean? Galilean's the king of the Jews too.
And
right?
But he also, after that question, he also says, "I find no fault in this man."
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
he's like, come on, guys.
it's not going to stand
You
up.
just want to kill him. That's it. You want him to kill him, and you want me to do it. And
Right.
I don't see any fault. And then he finds out, oh, wait a minute, King of the Jews from Galilee? Oh, Herod's the king of the Jews. Let's go see if you. And so Jesus never says a word to Herod. Not a thing to Herod. And you can just imagine how infuriating that would be so boring. But again, you can see how little care Herod puts into his leadership there. He doesn't get angry. He just starts mocking him and sends him back.
Right.
Like, you're so boring.
Right.
I thought this was going to be fun. It's not fun.
Yeah.
Go back over.
But you know, it is fun.
And,
put a purple robe on him.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And start making fun of him.
And then send him back to Pilate. I don't want to mess with this anymore. And so then he comes back. And so over the next day, tomorrow, we'll talk about more of that trial and how it finally finishes up. But this idea of, what is truth is incredible, because Jesus speaking to him, it's almost, you can see Jesus is trying to help him, let him off the hook. Are you really a king? And he goes, well, my kingdom's not an earthly kingdom. So immediately Pilate goes, this guy's nuts, right? He's no threat to the Roman Empire. Jesus is that totally lets him off the hook. And then he goes, if it were, my followers would fight you, but they're not going to fight you. Which, by the way, he's implying, all of Israel likes me. Right? You want a full-blown riot? I could have given you one. You want a full-blown revolt? I could have brought one if I wanted to. Right? And so I think power to power in that moment, I think Pilate had an understanding and is picking up on the fact that Jesus has no intent of doing that at all. And then he goes, but my kingdom's not of this world. And he says, so you are a king. He says, you say that I'm a king. Actually, I came into the world to testify about truth. I'm the king of truth. That's what I'm here for. You want to know what I'm all about? I'm not about you. I'm not about your power. I'm not about this palace. I'm not about your empire. I was here. I come from a different kingdom, and I'm just trying to bring truth to the people. Yeah. And to a guy like Pilate, he had to be thinking, I think this guy's lost his marbles.
Right.
Well,
because he says,
really?
my kingdom's not of this world.
Right.
And at the time, think about of this world, what are you even talking about?
Right.
And then he goes into this ethereal, cerebral, I came to testify of truth. And I'm sure Pilate's probably thinking, is he talking about the world of the mind?
Right.
Right? What is he talking about?
So who are you saying? Are you saying you're Apollo? Is that what you're saying? Are you saying you're
right?
Right. That's because a king, not of this world. Really, that's what you're a Roman god. Is that what you're some kind of a Jewish god? That's the thing. And he had to have thought, this guy is crazy. And so you can clearly see he doesn't want to kill Jesus. And then tomorrow we'll see again, he has no desire to go down this path. I sometimes, not to let Pilate off the hook, but I do feel like Pilate got played. And there is also the fact that I think he just runs out of gas and doesn't want to engage with this anymore. And what is it to me to kill one more weirdo? Right.
And by the way, let's not overlook the fact that John is the book here that includes the conversation, like you said, about truth. It's also the one that talks about only the Romans are permitted to execute someone. That's another insightful thing. Yeah. But John also includes that his accusers didn't want to go inside of Pilate's house because it would defile them, and they wouldn't be allowed to celebrate the Passover.
Right. Ew.
Right. So if going into a Gentile's house made them unclean, which it did, right? So they're wanting Pilate to be their puppet to execute, Jesus for them. And at the same time, unfortunately, they can't go in because if they do go in, by the way, they'll have to go and cleanse themselves, and they'll have to isolate themselves for 7 days or 3 days?
Yeah, it depends on what I don't remember what the purification would be, but
whatever the law said. And they'd probably have to go into the sea. They'd probably have to go into the Sea of Galilee first, and then isolate themselves for days. And they can't do that because the Passover literally is within 24 hours. And so, which is obviously on the Sabbath. So, I just think that it's really interesting. So they're like, Pilate, come on out here, which means that these aren't room discussions. This is a courtyard public conversation. That's what's happening here. It's happening in the courtyard with everybody around because it's not indoors.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody can see it happening.
Right. This isn't the room where it happened. Remember Hamilton?
Yeah.
The room where it happened. The room where it happened. Yeah.
So the difficulty for Pilate here is he's confronted with truth. And he doesn't know for sure what truth is, but he does know this truth. Jesus is not guilty. He's not worthy of death. Mm-hmm. And he rejects the truth he does have. And so I think sometimes people have access to some of God's truths, but they won't make a decision until they have all the truth. Or they feel like, well, there's more. I don't understand it all right now, so I can't make a decision. And Pilate made a decision. He didn't understand it all. I think he thought Jesus was a little nuts on some of this stuff. But the truth he did know was Jesus wasn't guilty of anything worthy of death.
Right.
And he rejected that. Even as Jesus is trying to say, hey, I have a different kingdom. He rejects that idea, doesn't even ask any more questions about it.
He's going to again.
He just asks about truth, and that's it. And then, so I think that it's really important for us to take the truth that we do have, the words of God that you do have, the access to Jesus that you do have, respond positively to that. And then God will continue to reveal more of his truth to you. And so this is why Pilate is also culpable in this whole process. And so you have both the Jews and the Gentiles being culpable in the execution of Jesus. Is he had access to truth and rejected it.
So something you just said reminds me of something. You've talked with skeptics or agnostics or people who say, hey, I refuse to make a decision about Christ because I have some questions. And these are my questions. And until I get those answered, I want to debate and I'm a thinker and all these different kind of things. And I would just say, over the 30 years I've been a pastor, I've never seen anybody intellectually get all their questions answered, and that was their way into heaven.
Oh, right.
Right. It's like somebody doesn't get all the answers and then make a decision to become a Christian, right? Because not everything is going to be answered to everybody's satisfaction. And if you're a person that's very inquisitive and you want to know more, and this is, if you're the type of person, a project manager who says, I can't go in until every last stone is unturned and everything's explored. I know every possible angle before I enter into any project, which there are people like that. And that's a good thing in a lot of ways. But when it comes to faith, there are things that we are required to just, take by faith, which, by the way, even Jesus interacting in the 33 years that he lived, there were things that he didn't explain. And he just said, walk by faith.
Yeah.
He never gave people explanations on some things.
Well, that's what we understand is that we walk by faith and not by sight alone, right? And so it comes to both. The truth is there, and the truth is clear, and the Holy Spirit can show you the truth. But there is a faith moment when you have to just decide to say, I'm not God, and I have to choose to make a choice and a belief. We do that all the time. You get in your car, even the best engineer doesn't know every single element. You get in a plane and you sit down and you let somebody you've never even met, you didn't even look at their license, and you let them fly you at 550 miles an hour, 30,000 feet above the ground, hollow metal tube. Right. We live by faith all the time.
Right.
And so it's that level of faith. I understand thrust. I understand lift. I understand some of those things. I trust the brand of Delta Airlines. Right. So I've got these things, and so I'm making an educated decision. I'm taking the preponderance of the evidence. That guy's wearing gold eagles on his shoulder. He's got a blue hat. He's standing there greeting me right next to the door. Apparently he's allowed in. And I've seen Delta work before. I think the plane's going to get me to Omaha.
Empirical evidence.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I take the preponderance of that evidence, and the evidence, the truths are enough for me to go, okay, all the things I don't understand and know, I can trust that they do. And then I can place my faith in that pilot to get me to Omaha or wherever I'm going. It's the same thing. So you can take the truths, either you accept them or reject them, take the preponderance of the evidence, and then go, okay, by faith, I can accept the rest while I'm still learning and discovering those things.
Do you fly to Omaha much?
No. I know. It said Omaha. I'm just trying to think of a town.
All right. Well, hey, we are right at that time. So that's been, that's wrapping up today, and we'll pick it up tomorrow on the Bible Guys.